5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Liftoff.
Hey everybody, welcome to Thursday night. This is the last, little tears are falling. This is the last Jump Into Racing live stream that we are doing for the spring season because it's the last jump race of the spring season for the National Steeplechase Association. They take a little bit of a break. They come back in July. So we'll reignite in July, but let me welcome our guests. I've got Megan Connolly next to me, looking beautiful. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Good to see you again. We spent last weekend together, so it's been like 5 days apart. Sad.
I know. I'm missing you terribly.
Well, I've got my wine here, so we can do that. And then below me, someone that I have not seen in ages. Gino, what's going on? How are you?
I have to upgrade my background so it can look just like Megan's a lot better. My problem is I got a 3-year-old running around. So if I ever try to set anything up within 2 minutes, it's all knocked over. Like I can't ever do it. So as soon as I try, afterwards, I'm like, you know what? I'm not even going to try anymore, but I'm going to try to pick some winners today. And I'm excited because this has been a show that I've had to listen to and learn the last few weeks whenever there are these jumps contests, because I don't know quite as well with that. So I pick up some pointers along the way. I know the stable dual games and formats pretty well. And actually some of these horses we've actually seen in thoroughbred races years behind, but I'm excited to be a part tonight and then even talk a little Pimlico.
Yep, and I know you had a live stream just a little while ago, so you're hot on the tongue. We got to hear those long shots that you've got, and we're going to talk about the Preakness card and especially the Preakness race. But Radnor is this Saturday. It is the last free-to-play contest in the Stable Duel app. $2,000 in prizes paid out to the top 25. There are 5 races on the card. One of those is a timber race, which we have talked about time and time again in each of these live streams. And there are only 3 horses in that race. So we'll talk about stable duel strategy, but there's going to be a lot of people that might double up in that one that could pay off or maybe not.
But they're really expensive, right? So you got to make sure if you pick like the right ones, that you're picking the right 2. Because if it's one of them that doesn't get the best finish in the world and is well behind, then you could be in a little trouble.
Yep. I mean, if you have a horse that finished 3rd and it finishes so many lengths back, it could still be negative points in the stable. So that's what you've got to think about in the stable duel game, and especially with these jump races, timber versus hurdle. We'll touch on that a little bit. Megan, from the Radnor card, is there anything that you are super excited about for this Saturday?
Just because it's been a long spring and there's been a lot of great racing, I'm curious to see how it's going to end, and then happy for everybody to have a bit of a breather. But it is a good card. It's loaded with value. It's too bad that we only have stable duel to play, because there's a lot of long shots on here that I think could really jump up and surprise. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I really like Quid in the first for Julie Gomina. And I don't know why, I just like that horse. I remember being impressed with how he ran the last time. But yeah, it's a good card. The timber race, as you mentioned, is only 3, but there are 3 decent horses in there. Elusive Exclusive had missed some time and is back now for champion trainer Leslie Young, who is still clearly on the front. And then Freddie Proctor. Freddie Proctor, who's back as of last weekend from a fractured collarbone, and he was last year's champion apprentice jockey, but also our top timber jockey. So he's got them out there. And then Cracker Factory going to post for Mark Beecher under Jamie Bargery is another horse that I think is really good contender in that small field. So, and then the next race, the National Hunt Cup, which is an allowance hurdle for 115 or lower rating. Mato Saparanda, as you mentioned earlier, did have a good race last time out. So he's in my stable duel. And I like Who's Counting as well, going to post for Sean McDermott. So there's another horse. And then Hail to the Chief, who broke his maiden at Great Meadow. And Kathy Nielsen's winning races left, right, and center. So another horse that I think could be one to watch there. So yeah, I'm excited. Like I said, there's some races in here that are wide open, which makes it fun for a stable duel. But really, if there was wagering, this would be a fabulous card because there's a ton of value in here.
Now, Kathy won last weekend at Iroquois, and her daughter Skylar did the interview with you. So that was really cool to see. I mean, we've already heard that Kathy and her sister were racing up against each other the weekend before. Kathy's daughter is there representing at Iroquois. So it's always fun to see the family elements of steeplechase for sure.
Well, and just to add on to that, so Skylar was champion apprentice jockey a couple of years ago, and she's now assistant trainer for her mom, but she's schooling everybody's horses up in and around the Pennsylvania area. So whenever you see a horse cross the line first, if it's not in Leslie's barn or Carrie's barn, chances are pretty good Skylar has gotten a chance to jump on it and school it, and everybody thanks her for her good. She's an amazing rider, absolutely incredible over jumps. But the reason she was at Iroquois was because Kathy was selling horses at Willowdale where she had winners. So yeah, they've been doing quite well. I think Kathy's in the standings at perhaps she's in 4th place right now. She's 5th in the standings for races won. She's had 6 wins, 3 seconds, and 5/3 from 24 starts. So she is really ticking off quite a high percentage with Win Play Show.
Well, we just dropped a few names if you're watching and you need some names to put in your stable. We just dropped Catherine Nielsen if you're looking for a trainer. She's on a heater as well as Leslie Young. Those are some great ones. We've been talking about Carrie Bryan this entire time, so she's doing fantastic as well. She had a little bit of a rough trip with some of the Irish last weekend. It was hot. It was humid as Hades. It wasn't even hot. It was just humid and a little rough on the Irish imports. But thankfully,
not one of them. One of them.
Yeah, that one. And he's going back. He's like, I'm good. I cleaned up. Yep. I'm on my way back to Ireland.
Jumped on a plane Tuesday, so.
Yeah. What about you, Gino? Who do you got?
There's one for sure on. Yeah, there's one in race number 2. I'm looking at the number 2 Webb in here. So like some of the similar patterns that I look at for things with thoroughbreds. I just think this horse is going to be making now the 3rd start of the form cycle, right? Probably from a fitness standpoint, we could get a better effort. We saw an improved effort from the 1st start of 2023 to the 2nd start. And now a lot of times, like we said, in these short meets where these trainers know how to get these horses ready and they want to kind of peak them for certain races, I think we could be seeing a pretty big performance from this one. And at 8-1 will only cost us, or at 3-1 will cost us 8,000 in our stable dual lineup. I think a major player in there is Webb.
So Gino, just a little information on Webb's trainer. First woman to be voted into the Racing Hall of Fame, Janet Elliott.
Awesome.
So there you go.
How
loaded
fantastic.
With experience and knowledge on how to get horses fit and win races.
So we're in good hands with Webb here, seeing if she can spin one up for me in race number 2.
Okay, I like this. Maiden Hurdle, the race 2. There you go. We just gave one. Let's see. We've got. So, what do you like about Modus Operandi? You said, Megan, that horse is in your stable. What stands out about that gelding?
You know, I just think there's a lot of hope on him in the barn in general. He had a really good race last time out under Parker. He was just beaten 2.5 lengths. And he beat a horse who I've always thought was better than what he's shown so far, and that's Neotropic. But his maiden win last year at Montpelier, which is a challenging turf course to go around, was Defiant. He won there by 10 3/4 lengths. So I really liked that performance. He didn't have a good first start this spring because he lost Parker in the saddle at Middleburg in that non-winners at 2, but then came back in another non-winners at 2 for bigger purse money at Great Meadow 2 weekends ago. And I liked that race. So I think he's definitely a horse to keep your eye on for sure.
I like
now the question I have for you in race 3, if we're going to pick 2, because they're all expensive from like a stable dual strategy when we're building our lineup, how would you rank those 3? Like based on like what you like, if somebody needs a little help with that race, because that's probably the most difficult race as far as putting your lineups together. Do you want to use one of those? Do you want to use 2? Do you want to spend up on all of them and then shorten up all over? But who do you really like? Do you think there's a standout, or how is that?
I do. So if you're looking at traditional handicapping, Gino, then I would say no. The number 3 is the horse to beat. He's 3-5 in the morning line because he's been running in stakes races over Timber and winning those races. So last year he had 4 starts. He had 2 wins and a third over Timber fences. So he's the horse that's very accomplished in this division, particularly against these horses. He's not the top horse in the division, but he is really well placed here. And so the fact that he went off course in the last race, it's unfortunate because he was actually jumping out to a significant lead at that point. And poor Jamie realized it when it was too late, that he was taking a right-handed turn up on the backside of the race course. But I think that Cracker Factory, if you look at his past form over Timber, is really a decent horse. And he's got stakes experience already. So he's dropping down a little bit in this race, I would say, against these horses running in just an allowance race. And then Great Road, again, same kind of thing. So he ran in a stake in his last start at Willowdale, which was just last weekend. He slipped and lost his rider, Eric Peretz. But if you look at the combination of Eric Peretz and Joe Davies, they've won the Maryland Hunt Cup, I think, twice now, maybe 3 times. So Timber specialists, and he won the Grand National Allowance race back earlier in the spring on the lead. So he's a good horse, but he didn't beat much that day in that little allowance race. And he was actually a maiden going into that. So he's not as accomplished. And then if you look at Elusive Exclusive, he hasn't run since a year ago last year, and he was second in the Timber Allowance race at Percy Warner, which, again, very difficult course. And he was second to Monbeg Stream, who's come back and had a pretty good spring already here. But the horse in the next race, if you look at Vintage Vinny, 2 lines down, he was only 3/4 of a length behind Vintage Vinny, who is a legend in the Timber division. He's won the Maryland Hunt Cup twice. And then he was behind Renegade River, who's also been a standout in the Timber division. So just looking at class really here and experience, and that's how I'm rating this race. So I'm definitely taking Cracker Factory and Elusive Exclusive here.
Perfect. Awesome.
Well, we've got Steve Bick here. I think he's in a car, so we're gonna see if we can bring him in and see what's going on. How are you, Steve?
I'm good. How you doing, Megan?
Good. Thanks so much for popping on.
Oh, hey, Brad. I see Bree and Megan and Gino. Hey, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
We're rolling through it. So you are at the Preakness. You've got the pre-Preakness party tonight. Is that right?
Well, actually, we were at Country Life Farm in Joppa. I've got 2-year-old at their training facility, Maryland. We've also got a Mosler. Mosler stands at Country Life. We've got a Mosler yearling as well. So they have a party. It's actually their 90th anniversary, the Pons family. And of course, they produced Malibu Moon and one of the great venerable operations in Maryland racing and American racing. So they had their 90th anniversary party tonight, and that's where I've been.
That's awesome. It was a good turnout, good food, good drink, good people.
Exactly. All of the above.
Country Life's been prolific in the East Coast breeding. I mean, I could just remember going back so long ago and them always being prominent. And actually, I believe there was even I think Blood Horse, perhaps a long time ago, had a Country Life diary, and it was kind of like a day in the life back a long time ago. But yeah, they've been incredible and have turned out several good horses and been responsible. So
yeah,
that's nice.
That diary, the Country Life diary, is Josh Pons himself, and there's actually a collection of those columns published, and Josh is instrumental in the Maryland Thoroughbred Library that they established a couple of years ago. The place is a treasure trove. In fact, I'll put up a picture later. One of my favorite artifacts at Country Life, they've got a shoe of Man of War that he wore in the Withers, and I always I got a good picture of it this time. Sometime other picture wasn't great, so I'll put that up on Twitter. People will go crazy.
I bet.
So what does a farm look like in Maryland compared to what people usually see with the Lexington Bluegrass? Is it more hills, a little bit different?
Yes.
Is it more flat? Okay.
You're absolutely right. It's more of a unrefined countryside. Country Life in particular, and the fact that it's 90 years old, so you didn't necessarily have the same ability to level ground. So there's high points for some of the paddocks. Then there's big long hills and gallops that they take the horses out on. It's within a mile of the old Bel Air racetrack. They used to have basically a walk between Country Life and Bel Air. It's undulating. It's fascinating, actually. Even the barns themselves are like split level, so it's a little bit more rough and tumble. It doesn't have that, that same grandiosity and elegance that the Kentucky farms do. But the job gets done. There's the stallion barn, there's the broodmare barn, there's the nursery, the areas for horses being prepped for sale. It's got all the same accoutrements. It's just a little less refined, I suppose, but they get the job done.
Okay. I'm excited. We just put out the web link that Megan shared. So if anybody wants to check out a little bit more about Country Life Farm, it's in the YouTube chat. You can click on there and check out their website and learn a bit more. And follow Steve. He's going to post a picture, and you always post good things in general. So people should be following and listening to your amazing radio show. You've got a good one for Preakness, I'm sure. Is there any special guests that you've got on this one?
It's the usual lineup. I've been here all week, and we've actually done quite a bit more, compared to Derby, where it's, nonstop analysis and the dissection of the field and every aspect of the race. This week has been dominated by a lot of industry discussion. Alan Foreman, the head of the Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association and longtime legal counsel to the Maryland Horsemen, and many, many other industry organizations. Alan was with me for about an hour and 15 minutes today. We did quite a bit of HISA and the Forte, the handling of the Forte issue. Then we fleshed out all of what's happening in Maryland, and it's very complex. There's a lot of moving parts. So there was a lot of that yesterday. Lisa Lazarus from HISA, as well as Eric Hamelbeck from the HBPA. So there's been actually quite a bit of follow-up that I needed to, and catch up I needed to do, because Derby is such a monolith, and it takes up all the oxygen of the topics that we cover on a day-to-day basis. So it's really been sort of a cross-section kind of a week here in Baltimore, and we've done plenty of handicapping of the two cards. The two cards came up very good for all the hand wringing and teeth gnashing about the 2 weeks and everything. These two cards are excellent, and 28 races, 27 if minus the Arabian Steak, which is always kind of fun to watch. It's two really strong days of racing. Looks like the weather is going to cooperate on Saturday now. So we should have, a terrific Black-Eyed Susan Preakness weekend, and it'll be all handicapping tomorrow.
Well, we've got Gino on for about 9 more minutes, and we've got you. So why don't we just hit the big race? I want to know who you're choosing and why, maybe who your value pick is. Just let's hit it. Let's start with you, Gino. Who are you choosing in the Preakness?
Yeah, from a stable duel standpoint, the Preakness is a tough race because it does feel like there are 3 horses that are in that top tier, and they do feel like they are the 3 most logical winners of the race. I'm talking about Mage, who won the Kentucky Derby, First Mission, drawn to the outside. There's been some kind of like negative scuttlebutt. I don't know about anything like official, but just
we'll see.
Hearing some great buzz on him. But if he's in the race and he's good to go, he's a major player and the national treasure from the rail. I think those 3 really are head and shoulders above everybody else. Now, from a pure stable duel standpoint, if you get to the Preakness, if you're struggling and you don't have a whole lot to spend and you need some help with the long shot, I feel like of all these horses, I know what I'm going to get from Red Route 1. He's going to launch. He's going to pass half of the field. He just needs some pace to run at. Can he get enough pace? Will they be going fast enough for a horse like him? I don't know, but consistently, if we're talking about a horse who's 10-1 on the morning line, that will only cost us 1,000 in our stable duel lineup, I could see him being a horse that a lot of people use, because at the very least, I could see a nice third from him, passing a bunch of tiring horses and maybe beating one of those 3 top tier horses if they all get like worried about each other too much. So he would be my outside the box horse. I really don't know if he has a great chance to win this race, though. I really do think that if First Mission's in here, I would lean First Mission over Mage myself. I think he had the opportunity to get the jump on Mage. I think he's sort of progressing in the right way. Mage's slow starts concern me just a little bit. So I would lean First Mission as my top pick, and I would put Red Route 1 as my stable dual play if you need some help putting your lineup together there.
Yeah, so Red Route 1 is 10-1 for a stable dual app. You're getting this horse for $1,000. If you're betting on the side with your traditional ADW, obviously the odds will change. Live odds always do. But if it can stay above, 6-1,
yeah,
I would say that's a decent win play show across the board. If you're looking for a bet or, show pool with your friends, whatever you're doing, Red Route 1. What about you, Steve? What are we looking at for this one?
Well, I think the Derby winner kind of lays over this group, and if we're worried about his tactical ability, if you go back to his maiden win, I was there that day for Pegasus, and the horses that win at 7/8 first out, you need real speed and tactical speed. He showed that. I got a feeling he's going to sit much closer to the pace. He didn't break all that badly, really, in the Derby. It almost felt, if you watch it again a couple of times, it almost felt like they had determined that their best shot was going to be to take back, save some ground, and come with a run. And it worked. It really, I don't know if it would work 7 out of 10 times, but it worked 2 weeks ago. And in this race, I think he's going to tuck in behind the 3 speeds. And you do have, between National Treasure, Coffee with Chris, and First Mission, you're going to have a trio that are going to set up shop essentially and vie for the lead. And Mage is going to set right behind them. And Castellano will set up, I think, a very comfortable spot. The horse, I think Mage wins this race, and I'll be fairly surprised if he's upset. The horse that feels like the right value is Perform. And if you haven't watched the Federico Tessio, pull it up. It is a sight to behold, as Fergal Lynch is all over the place with Perform, basically weaving through horses, jumping from the 2-path to the 4-path in the late stages, and overtaking 90% Maddie in the final strides. This is a horse that is going to, I think, even relish the mile and 3/16 even more than the mile and the 1/8. You're talking about a set of connections here with Shug McGahee, Woodford Racing, the Farishes and Lane's End, as well as the Phipps family. They put up $150,000 to supplement Perform into this race. These aren't people that put up $150,000 to run 6th or 7th. Mm-hmm. If Shug said to them he's doing great and he can perform in this spot, that's enough for me. I think at 15-1, you want Perform as your price key under Mage.
Steve, can I ask you a question? What type of trip? Because it does seem like in his last couple races where they've made a case of maybe taking back, or even it was sort of a blessing in disguise, right? A slow start, he's farther back. Yeah. Where would you like him to be placed as someone who may be backing Perform? What kind of trip would you like to see for him?
I would guess that, if Shug sits down with Fergal Lynch, he's going to tell him, basically, attach yourself to Mage. If Mage is sitting, let's say, 4th early, then Perform should be 5th early, basically the trip that he got in his maiden breaker, and more or less ghost Castellano. And when he moves, move with him. And there's your matchup. And is Perform, is he good enough to elevate? And basically, he's going to have to improve. Let's see, he's going to have to improve 20 buyer points. Yeah, you're talking, Well, he's going to have to improve about 6 or 7 lengths.
Yeah.
The fact is, when a horse gets to these classic distances, that's the whole beauty of the Triple Crown season. You're getting horses that, for the most part, I mean, now we do have the UAE Derby at 1 mile and 3/16. We've got the Louisiana Derby at 1 mile and 3/16. So there is occasion for some of these horses to have already run the Preakness distance and approach the Derby distance. But a horse like this, he may have been crying out the whole time to run 1 mile and 3/16, 1 mile and a quarter, even 1.5 miles. So you can't look at a horse. This is the same mistake that we make sometimes when we're watching 2-year-olds become 3-year-olds and watch them stretch out from 1 mile and 1 mile and a 16th to 1 mile and an 1/8. That's a dividing line, and so is 1 mile and 3/16 or 1 mile and a quarter. So even though it looks improbable that Perform could be quote unquote as fast as Mage, we don't know that yet. And I would rather have a horse that we don't know something about, that hasn't already been exposed, as opposed to taking a horse that is kind of close but really hasn't shown any real ability to run at the level that Mage has already established. I mean, National Treasure, he's been stuck in the same gear essentially since last September.
I'm kind of a pass on him too, of the contenders.
He hasn't.
He hasn't gotten better, and we're talking about Trip. He doesn't really seem like he wants to pass horses all that much. They'll probably put him up front from the inside, but he just hasn't taken that step forward, and I agree. I can see him and Chris kind of battling it out up front, at least with First Mission not too far behind them. But of the shorter priced horses, I feels like I'm a little cold on him too, Steve.
They're adding blinkers to National Treasure, so clearly they want him closer to the pace.
Well, and from the one hole, the Baffert playbook is well established in these races, and that is get to the front, make them come after you. Right. And his horses are trained for stamina. This horse, though, he's just okay. He'll win some things along the way, but look at who's beaten him. I mean, all the better horses from his class have already beaten him. What makes us think that other than the fact that I'm sure Baffert wants to come here and perform well this weekend, now with the shackles taken off, I want horses that are underexposed. I want a horse like Perform in the hands of somebody that is as good as there's ever been in Shug McGahee.
I don't normally I don't want to road trip with people. I want to listen to radio shows or music. I would road trip with you, Steve, all day long to hear all of this be dropped for hours on end. I love it so much. It's great. I love it. What about, so no one has talked about the Chad Brown Blazing Sevens. We just don't rate that one at all. Irad.
I'm a little worried about him. When we talk about National Treasure was actually even better and has better efforts than him as a 2-year-old. And then I just haven't seen that same improvement from him. Like both of these horses, the concern for me is I would want like double the price on them in this spot, and the race is not as strong. So they're just going to be if they win, it'll be way shorter than what I would want to play them at. If National Treasure wins in like 7-2, 9-2 range at under 5-1, that's too short for me. If we got up into the 8-1-ish range, well, now we could talk about it, but there's not that many other contenders in this race. Like he does fit as probably the third choice. And I think the same for Blazing Sevens. After those top 3, he's the next one. I haven't really seen enough from him in his couple starts this year to see that growth and development from him. So I would agree with Steve. I mentioned Red Route 1, but I would go Perform as the next horse after those, because I would take a little bit more of a swing at a bigger price with a little bit more upside. As Steve mentioned too, a horse like Perform, if he tries to close with Mage, that's when Mage maybe doesn't have another step forward. Maybe he regresses just a little bit from 2 weeks. He doesn't have to have a bad performance, the 2-week turnaround. That's when those things might come into play when a horse tries to close with them. So I have no problem with Perform as the price play that Steve mentioned.
I love it. Well, I wish you both luck. If you're playing Stable Duel, we haven't even dropped what the Preakness games are, but there is a $15,000 Stable Duel game on Saturday, $100 entry. We have a $25 entry game, and we have a $5 entry game. So no matter what your entry level is, you can play Stable Duel for Preakness Day and plenty of games tomorrow. But Gino, I know you've got to bounce. I just want to thank you so much. Good luck at Radnor too.
Thank you, and I'll give you one for people to use in your Stable Duel lineups on Saturday on the undercard, race number 8 at Pimlico. It's the dinner party, and I know it's normally on Sunday, but I'm hoping Easter is on Saturday this year because I like the number 3 Easter, who is 10-1. I think it's going to be stepping into this race, second start off the bench. If you look at the races last year, you can make some legitimate excuses for a couple of them. This horse ran a good race first time in North America. Then he got caught behind a really, really slow pace in the Man of War, and he ran well. He again ran really well behind a sharp horse. And then in his first start as a 5-year-old, off of a long, long layoff, he was impressive. I think there's a nice ceiling with Easter. So let's see if we can get Easter on Saturday this year and this weekend. Good luck, Megan, Steve. Nice chatting with you, and Bree. Hope everybody has a great weekend.
Yes, thank you.
Good luck.
Have a good one.
Gino, I'll give you permission to use my favorite line, which is after a horse like that wins. In this particular case, you can say, when I tell you it's Easter, start coloring eggs. And
I love it.
He's the best horse. He's the best horse ever for that line. I'll give everybody a horse for tomorrow.
I'm going to coach you on that, Steve. See you guys later.
See you, Gino. Steve. In the Black-Eyed Susan tomorrow, Feza is way the filly to beat, obviously, and she's going to be probably 4 to 5. However, Randy Morse's filly Taxed. I was at Churchill for 2 weeks, and Pretty Mischievous absolutely touted herself the entire 2 weeks. She was my pick, and we did nicely in the Oaks with Pretty Mischievous. The filly that was second best to her the 2 weeks leading up to Oaks Derby weekend was Taxed. She was on the AE list. There was all that movement in the Derby. There wasn't any movement in the Oaks. Taxed followed up all the work she was doing with another bullet, 59 flat, preparing for this. I don't know if she can beat Feza. She's going to be 15, 18, 20 to 1. She is the right horse with Feza. I would absolutely try her with a little win bet, a little win saver bet, but I think you want to key her second in a big way for your try keys and your exacta key. Taxed is the 10 horse. Rafi Bejarano, Randy Morse. She gets weight. She actually gets 6 pounds from Feza under allowance conditions. So Taxed is little price tomorrow in the Black-Eyed Susan.
I'm making a note now.
Write that down. Get your bet in right now.
I've got cash in my FanDuel account thanks to Bree for touting Mage. So gotta spend
nice job,
that.
Very nice.
It was a good
yeah, it was a good day. I overindulged and I got paid at the end of the day.
Overindulged. So you were overserved.
I was overserved, as Mindy would say. I was overserved. Yeah, for sure. Steve, how much more time do you have with us?
I'm sitting in a parking lot now. I went to find a better signal. So
okay.
I know Joe. I know Joe's waiting for you.
Yep, we're gonna bring Joe on. I want to hear about your experience at last weekend's Iroquois, but let's bring Joe on here. Hey, Joe, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you guys?
You tailgating?
I'm tailgating. Yeah, I'm leaning in the tailgate. Get out.
Literally.
That's
it's beautiful. My goodness.
Country Life Farm in the background.
Nice.
There we go.
Rolling
we were just talking about it, so you're putting the imagery.
The mares and foals are the other direction, unfortunately. But whatever. I thought I saw one down there.
Is Katie with you?
No, I am in the back of my car looking at all of Katie's dog hair that is everywhere. But whatever.
Welcome to my world.
Well, Joe, thank you so much for coming on. Your resume is all the way up here. We're really happy to bring you on for jump racing. We obviously want to hit you up for your Maryland knowledge on the racing side, and of course, Preakness. Were you at Iroquois last weekend?
I was not. I was at Willowdale with my 88-year-old father and 85-year-old mother who like to go there and see all their friends. So we were tailgating in the rain and watching the Iroquois on live stream, which was fun. And I didn't do much work at Willowdale. Sort of, it was kind of a nice day to, even though it was the weather wasn't great, but it was a nice day out for sure.
Okay. Yeah, Steve, tell us about your experience. That was my first Iroquois. I don't know how many times you've attended or how many jump races you've attended.
That was my first. I basically was coerced and browbeat into going by Joe's brother Sean. For years and years, I was told that I was a complete laggard for not moving from Louisville, from Derby on to Nashville for Iroquois. And how you're only a couple of hours away. Why wouldn't you go? And finally, I said, all right, you know what? This is the year we're going to do it. And in fact, Tina, who for years has been known as Derby Barbie, she bypassed the Derby and became Iroquois Barbie. She was dying to go to Nashville. So I stayed on in the Ville after Derby for the first time. I stayed till Wednesday, did our recap shows from Churchill, and then Thursday and Friday did the show from Percy Warner and from Iroquois, and it was terrific. It's funny. A lot of people said, "Oh, you're going to like it more than Far Hills." I like it the same as Far Hills. It's different. It's a little bit more of a. It's a little bit more of a spread out layout. Essentially, it isn't as concentrated as Far Hills is, and frankly, the wet weather sort of inhibited the ability to walk around and take in some of the tailgate activity and the like the retail village and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't a great Saturday for that because of all the rain. We got way more rain than expected. But in terms of the racing, in terms of the venue, in terms of the lead up, being in Nashville, we were right on the heels of the Nashville was still feeling the after effects of the Taylor Swift 3-night stand. The town was still abuzz, and it's a huge social event. It's the spring social event in Nashville. The people were just delightful. It's a tremendous event for fundraising for the Children's Hospital. They've raised $11 million for the Children's Hospital. It's just spectacular. Anybody that wants to make an effort to take in a hunt meet, a chase event, having it in Nashville, coming in a few days early, maybe make it a 2-weekend, 3-weekend event. You can go to Land Rover, go to the 3-day event before the Derby, go to Derby, then go to Iroquois. It'd be a tremendous 17, 21-day event for everybody. Somebody should put together a package of those 3 weeks.
Yeah, I agree. The area in itself is absolutely stunning. You're driving on roads with beautiful old homes, new homes, and then the park itself, it was a vision. They had this grandstand seating that isn't grandstand seating, but it was like tiered of outdoor, built into the earth boxes, if you will, that created this huge backdrop for the horses to run by as if it was a Derby grandstand seating. But it's just something that I haven't seen yet at the jump races. And it's still a party. I mean, people are hanging out, partying, loving the races as they go by in front of them. And the paddock is right there as well. So it's not even separated when the horses are warming up and the jocks are getting on there, getting in front of all of these people for all stages of the race. And that's something you don't see at a lot of racetracks in general. So that was a really cool experience for Iroquois on my end, at least. So what about Willowdale? Tell us some cool things about Willowdale, Joe.
It's for us it's like the local meet, which is nice. I mean, for me it's a 25-minute drive. It's right. I went to high school right next to the Iroquois course or the Willowdale course. It was not a steeplechase course then yet. It was probably a cornfield or something. But it's a much more low key. It used to be the Sunday, the day after the Iroquois, and it was a big sort of homecoming for whoever won the Iroquois was there. Usually, getting sort of celebrated on top of the racing that was there. Very tailgate centric type of thing. Not quite the crowd of the Iroquois, but still a cool day out. They ran into a little weather too, which impacted it some. But and then this year and I'm one of the critics of it being the same day as the Iroquois because I think it sort of stresses people trying to go to both. But on the counterpoint to that is it gave some people some chances, like jockeys especially, to get rides they wouldn't normally get. Connor Tierney's a 19-year-old Irish kid who's over here for a couple of months, and he rode 3 winners. He hadn't ridden a winner at all before he came to America. So Virginia Carrell rode a winner. I mean, those kinds of things make it, help make it a cool day out. And yeah, you see a lot of people. You always see a lot of people at Willowdale that you haven't seen in a while, which was kind of fun. I mean, Janet Elliott's there. Graham Alcock, who's a starter at some of the Virginia meets, was there. Rick Abbott and his wife, Russell Jones, Evan Ferraro with Phasic Tipton was there as a surprise. I'm like, hey, what are you doing here? And they were setting up the Timonium sales grounds, and he's in town, and he came to the races at Willowdale. So it's a cool day out.
Yeah. Well, so Radnor is this weekend. That is our headliner on the jump race side, and we've got a stable duel contest. Has anybody been to Radnor? Any fun things? Here we go. Joe's been there. What's something cool about Radnor?
I used to go there all the time before I started covering so many Preaknesses. I watched a lot of Preaknesses from Radnor, and they eventually got a big screen and they put the Preakness on there. And I was the year Smarty Jones won, who was a big Philadelphia horse. And Radnor is just outside Philadelphia, and the place went absolutely bananas when Smarty Jones won. He had been covered by all the Philadelphia papers leading up to it, and when he won on the big screen after the steeplechase, like people stayed around for an hour to watch the Preakness,
Awesome.
And when he won, it was a big deal. It's very similar to Willowdale in that it's like for the steeplechase people, it's a home game. For a lot of them, the people in the Unionville area, it's a short ship as opposed to the long van ride and plane rides and whatever else you got to do to get to the South Carolina meets or the Iroquois or, a lot of the places that you go to. So it's that course has changed a little bit. They rebuilt it a few years ago. It's now a right-handed course, pretty demanding type of course, not necessarily. It's a lot of maidens who are sort of making their first start. And a horse with some experience might be at a little bit of an advantage at Radnor compared to some of the other places for sure. But again, really cool day out. They do it right. There's a little bit of a mix of tailgating, sponsor type tents. There's a big hill where the Radnor Hunt Club is, and people are all sort of there in they call them box areas, but it's a little like Iroquois where they're just sort of maybe it's not quite as a natural hillside, but it's kind of roped off little areas with chairs, and then they have like a lunch in the club, and it's a cool day out.
Yeah. All right. Well, excited to see it on the live stream. Again, you can watch these races live at nationalsteeplechase.com. If you are playing in the Stable Duel app, you can watch them live directly in the app too. So all ways to watch and enjoy the jump races for the spring, and of course they'll restart in July at Colonial Downs in Saratoga. So much more to come. Well, Joe, we've got to hit you up about your Preakness, and we got to
wait. He hasn't told us his Radnor picks yet. I know they're coming out tomorrow on thishishorseracing.com, but who's your stable? Because we talked about
a lot of homework to do.
We talked about this at Great Meadow when you were there, shockingly, that it's a different kind of approach to handicapping for Stable Duel versus going to the window.
Yeah, and I was getting clobbered most of the spring. I had one meet where I did okay, another I would have 2 or 3 winners every meet, but then I'd also have 2 or 3 negative 20s, which would blow up your winners. I did much better at the Iroquois. Iroquois was probably the first meet where I thought there were some Stable Duel bargains, for lack of a better word, where you saw like Jimmy P. He was a $500 horse, and I was like, oh man, you got to pick him. That's a perfect saver kind of horse, and I ended up 6th overall in the Iroquois contest, so I was pretty happy with that. I was like, all right, I might be figuring this out. I was 320 something at Willowdale. So, it does. I think it's that kind of game. It's that kind of puzzle. And I was trying to explain it to somebody here tonight, that it's the horses 8, 9, and 10 are the challenge, kind of, right? And then you got to make sure you don't make a mistake with them. That's where your negative 20s are gonna really hurt you. So you got to be careful. And I barely looked at the Radnor card. I took a quick peek at it. So I got to do a little homework tomorrow in terms of picks. The 3-horse timber race looks enticing, but it also is kind of scary. Those 3-mile races and they can end up with a lot of horses getting beat a lot of lengths too. Right. So it's a little tricky. Right. I would probably stay away from that. I think Cracker Factory will win, but I would probably, in Stable Duel, I'd probably stay away. The Allowance Hurdle is a war. I mean, there are 3 horses in there at least who deserve to win. There will be 3 performances that will be winning performances out of that race. Unfortunately, there's only one winner. But I really like Without Destination. I think that's a very nice horse. He was going to win at this level at Saratoga a couple of years ago and ducked inside the cones. He had his run at Great Meadow. Todd Wyatt's horses always improve with a run, even though he'll tell you that he's trying to get him to win the first time. But I don't believe him. I think they're always building towards something else, so he should be better the next time.
And Elizabeth's been riding like really, really well this year.
Yeah, I mean that's
super
the only
confident
kind of. Yeah, I think she rides really well. I think that's a bit of a test for an inexperienced rider. A crowded, very competitive field, right-handed, a little bit of a tricky course with some hills and stuff like that. So I also like in those races. I would look toward a horse who's in their second type season over jumps, because it's an A other than basically. So a horse could have just won a maiden race this year and never run over jumps before this year. And I think those horses that have a few runs are in. They're a little longer into their steeplechase career in terms of when they jump their first fence. Like I think that gives horses an advantage a little bit at some of these places.
I like those tips. Those are good tips if you're looking at maiden runners and coming back, swinging back. All right. It'll be interesting to see what people do in the Radnor Hunt Cup, because a lot of people in Stable Duel, when they see a short field, their idea is to double up in the short field. But yeah, I mean, it could cost you dearly, especially if those horses are expensive, which they are, if your horses don't perform or are finishing a lot of lengths back. So
yeah, it's a 3-mile race, so a lot can happen, and it just gets. And I did that at the Great Meadow in the allowance race there at the Virginia Gold Cup. I was all excited, and I took 3 or 4 horses in the same race, thinking I was going to get all the points, and that didn't work. So yeah.
Well, let's say bye to Steve. We'll let Steve go since he's driving in the blue steel look right now.
I've got about an hour. I got an hour drive back to Catonsville. So
fair.
I'm going to say goodnight and wish everybody a great weekend. Joe's only got to go to Fair Hill. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, Steve. Good luck this weekend. Thank you.
Have a great weekend. We'll see you online.
I love the knowledge he dropped. I'm really excited. I feel like I need to go put some bets on right now. All right, so you've got the Radnor card to look at, and then you're putting up your analysis on thisisHorseRacing.com. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. So Tom Law, Sean, and I handicap all the jump cards, and we put that up on the website. This week's tricky, so it'll be up sometime tomorrow, but it might not be till later, because I'll be at Pimlico at the Black Eyed Susan card, and just gets a little helter-skelter of trying to run around. But it'll be up there before post time at Radnor and before Stable Duel entry time, put it that way.
Okay. Well, tell people where else they can find you, because and I'm sure that I know very little, but I do know that there are many places to find Joe Clancy, the Clancy brothers, between Saratoga, Mid-Atlantic. Tell everybody where we can find you and your great stuff.
So yeah, the website's the first stop. ThisisHorseRacing.com, and that's a lot of stuff just sort of funnels through there. We do the Saratoga Special newspaper during the Saratoga racing season, and it's available through the website as well as in print at Saratoga. And then we edit Mid-Atlantic Thoroughbred Magazine, which is what I do a lot of my sort of flat racing coverage, feature stories, that kind of thing. And it's an old not old fashioned, but it's an old fashioned style print magazine, monthly thoroughbred racing and breeding magazine, and we cover the Mid Atlantic, and steeplechasing's a big part of it, and it's just where you get into it a little more and learn, try to learn a little more about the people and the horses and the stories behind it all. The May issue, it's obviously everybody knows it's Secretariat's 50th anniversary type of thing, and the May issue of that magazine that's out, I did a feature talking to some people who were really behind the scenes and there when Secretariat won the Preakness, and Coley Blind, who was a patrol judge that day, his brother Frank was working on the starting gate that day. I love the dog back there. Look at that.
I stopped petting him and he's back here like fine.
Hello. And Cappy Jackson, who was a photographer there, she was 18 years old and was basically standing on a little stand at the 8th pole of Secretariat's Preakness. And she went on to a long career in racing, photography, fashion photography. She spent 10 years as the Baltimore Ravens official photographer for the NFL. And she had a lot of photos of Secretariat's Preakness that had never been published before. So we found stuff like that. I mean, those are the kind of things we try to dive into with Mid-Atlantic Thoroughbred. And they're fun to do, where you just get stories you don't see other places. That's the idea.
You guys do a great job on the backstories.
They're challenged sometimes to get it all. That part gets a little frustrating. I feel underreported, almost every month, but we managed to get it done. Like June's magazine went to the printer yesterday or Tuesday, and it was like trying to wrangle wild cats or something.
I'm sure every editor of every print magazine would say the same thing.
Says the same thing. Exactly. Yeah.
That's a good challenge to have, though, isn't it? Versus what are we going to do now?
Right. Exactly.
Sean writes great articles too that are really great human interest stories. You guys have done a great job, and you've won a ton of accolades for your writing. Even most recently, you last year, what was it? You picked up another turf writing award. I can't even think of what it is now, but
Pimlico does it. Yeah, Pimlico does a thing every year. They call it the Old Hilltop Award, where they for a career distinction or whatever. I didn't think I'd been doing it long enough to get one of those, but that's,
we'll take it. Just take it.
Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah.
That's funny.
So congratulations
in the Preakness, Joe.
I think if obviously Mage, if he runs back to his Derby, is going to be very against this group. It's going to be very tough to handle. But we see horses regress a lot. And that there's nobody else ran in the Derby in this field. It gets a little tricky to kind of get a gauge on all of them. I watched a bunch of horses train today. I know Steve mentioned him. I was most impressed with Perform. I just thought he was just a beautiful, long striding horse that Shug McGay was talking to me about the horse's development. He said, once we got him around 2 turns, he got so much better. And he had gone by us earlier in his gallop, and he just looked like a everyday horse. And then as he was saying that, he was coming off the turn, the second lap for him, and you're like, oh yeah, I see why, because he rolled by us like, that's a serious horse. And I was just impressed with what he looked like. Obviously Mage he galloped fine, he looked great. He's very today he was pretty relaxed. They were kind of making him go slow, or like he galloped slower than Shug's horse did, but that all horses are different, so I'm not really sure that you can take anything away from that. But it would have been interesting to compare his long rolling stride to Shug's horse's long rolling stride. They just did it differently.
You'll get to see it on Saturday.
Exactly. I think Brad Cox's horse, I think he and that First Mission and Perform are sort of similar in that they both kind of earned their way into their next step, would be a race like the Preakness. Probably neither one was going to go to the Derby or be ready for that type of challenge, but they might be up for this if they take another step forward. But they have to. Both trainers said, "Oh yeah, they got to improve again," and they don't always, So that's the kind of interesting part. I like to see the way some horses are trained a little differently. The First Mission was in Brad Cox's barn as a 2-year-old, working toward a 2-year-old prep. He just never, then they stopped with him and he was off for like 4 months, and regroup, come back as a 3-year-old, and he's done really well.
You've been covering this sport for a long time. And I mean, when I say sport, I mean racing, jump racing and flat racing. What are your thoughts on the shift in the approach to the Triple Crown? You've got some some trainers who point for the Preakness. You've got one horse, the Derby winner only coming to the Preakness. It didn't used to be like that. Why do you think there's such a shift now in how people approach it?
Like everything, I think it's a big combination of a whole bunch of things. I mean, I think trainers have learned to train horses to peak for a certain race now more than the way they used to, or whether maybe they didn't learn, there's more importance on that now for a peak effort. And I think human athletes are the same way. When you read about marathoners and everything else, look, they're trying to peak at the Olympics, or swimmers, all that stuff. Where I think before they just got in shape and they ran in the races, or they swam in the races, or whatever, and so to train a horse for that peak effort, and especially when the purses are what they are, you want that peak effort at the right time, and if everybody's gunning for the Derby, which obviously, face it, has more prestige and allure than any race in America, that does it. There's a little bit of I don't know, is the breed different? I don't know if it's any different or not, but I think that's a little part of it that, maybe it also might just be, we know more about horses now with the various diagnostic tools in terms of, where a horse might have run through a minor injury or a minor something that they now see on an ultrasound that you never would have seen back then, so
Right.
I don't know. This year, especially, you kind of forget that there were so many scratches and last minute sort of Derby entries who probably would have run in the Preakness if they didn't get in the Derby. I saw Ron Moquette at Pimlico today. I mean, he ran his horse in the Derby. He probably would have run in the Preakness, and he got in right before, the 2 days before. So I think the Preakness lost a few horses like that this year, which it changes it up. There were years that they offered that bonus for the points, which they don't anymore. So that kind of takes that away, which, face it, that had to be a little bit of an incentive to go run in all three.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of different factors. And it's always going to be, I still lean on, I think that horses are trained to peak for a specific race now way more than they ever used to be, and whether that's trainers worried about they don't want to lose races, there's a win percentage thing, or whether that's just the way they train them, I don't really know. I mean, and even steeplechasing, I think, is that way too now, where they're really, you want to peak for that Iroquois effort, then you can take a break.
Right.
Don't blow your Iroquois race in another race, and same thing with Far Hills or Saratoga or whatever. And it's just, I think, talking to the old timer trainers, Alan Jerkins and those other guys, I don't think they cared if they lost the race. They ran them enough times to get them fit and have them learn something, and then run really well into whatever race it is. And there's still trainers like that a little bit. I think Bill Mott's a little bit like that now. He runs his horses, and I don't think he probably doesn't know what his win percentage is, or nor does he care, and he's trying to get his horses to run as well as they can when they're supposed to.
Right. Yeah.
Do you think the entry to the breeding shed was the same way back then that it is now, in the sense of the horse won the Kentucky Derby, all right, we're retiring because we can come out of the gate, if you will, at a breeding, a stud fee of 100,000 and up, versus if we kept running and it got second and third, and then we're looking at 65. Was it always like that?
It's the syndicate too, right? They get syndicated for multi-millions of dollars.
Secretary retired. He retired a stud at 3. And so that's no different than today. But what was different was he could only breed 40 mares, ish. Where now they breed, the hotshot news guy and breeds 100, 140, 200 mares. Which changes the economic scale massively. I mean, if Flightline could only breed 40 mares this year, he might still be in training. The fact that he could breed as many as he could at that price makes it a little. I get the economics of it. Why it doesn't make any sense to leave him in training, but it does sort of hurt the racing side of it.
Jockey Club tried. They tried.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they tried.
I backed it. But I know, and I don't know if that's not the solution, then what is? I think that, and again, I think it's all a combination of everything. I think it's the bigger books, the bigger stud fees. Again, we know a lot more about horses when they get hurt, than we used to. So I think that part of it.
and the even Secretariat, even though, I mean, he didn't run it, he didn't run beyond his 3-year-old year, but at the end they ran him, 3 times on the turf. They sort of had more flexibility to do things like that, where now it's aim for the Breeders' Cup because we don't want to mess it up. We were going to peak on Breeders' Cup Classic Day, and then that's it. So.
Yeah.
Imagine if Leyline said, "Oh, we're going to try the turf a month after the Breeders' Cup." You'd be like, "What, are they crazy?" No.
Yeah, Twitter would lose itself.
Right, yes, completely go and turn inside.
Forget it. It's been out of control.
Right. Well, it looks like there's a little bit of drama for the Kentucky Derby. It looks like a little bit of drama is starting for Preakness. I have been texted since we've been on here, and someone is in the chat already talking about the rumors of First Mission. So we will see if that horse makes it into the starting gate. But hopefully everything is okay with him. But all right, so you gave out, you think if Mage can have the same Derby stamina, fire, Mage is going to be the winner here. Who is your value? Did you give a value pick? I know you.
Yeah, I would think. I guess Perform would be, but I think he's. I'm hoping he'd be a bigger price than. First Mission is probably not going to be much value as these 5-2 morning line. I think, where maybe Perform is a little bigger value. Just again, that's watching horses train today, talking to the couple of trainers I talked to, trying to read between the lines, looking at horses. Again, I think anybody. The other 7 all have to take a step forward. I think any of those trainers who think their horse is ready to run the race Mays just ran in the Derby, I don't think anybody thinks that. I think they think he has to take a step forward. Their horse has to take the kind of step forward that Mage took between the Florida Derby and the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah. Right. Well, hopefully First Mission stays in, because if not, you are getting no money on Perform. So
yeah, right. Yeah, that'll blow everything up. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Somebody just said that First Mission is scratched. So we'll see. Well, but who knows? This is all the chatter, and I'm not on social, so we'll see what happens. But
I was talking to Brad Cox 8-ish hours ago, so it all seemed fine. But who knows? Obviously, their horses, and a lot can happen.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Definitely.
Well, Joe, thank you so very much for popping on. I'm going to have to find the May version of Mid-Atlantic, and I'll wait till June comes off the print, but I'm going to be finding May so I can read the stories from the Secretariat section.
They're on. You can get that online. It's a little tricky, but it's midatlantictb.com is the magazine website, and you kind of got I think if you give them your email address, you can get a free download of the magazine. So.
Okay, that's great to know.
Or you can just subscribe, Bree. And have it delivered in your mailbox.
I'm going to. And Megan, you will be happy to know what I just recently subscribed to. It's called the Harness Racing Update.
Oh, yeah.
So we're gonna make Megan a harness fan. That is my goal before the end of 2023.
See you at Saratoga. See you at the Trotters at Saratoga.
Yeah.
There you go. With Tom Durkin.
Yeah. All right, Joe. Thanks so much. Good luck this week.
Thank you. You too. See you guys.
Bye.
Well, Mike, I feel like this stream has gotten better and better and better and better. And I mean, not to knock any of them, we had a huge filled crowd. What is the word I'm looking for? Cast.
I don't know.
I was going to cast.
Yes.
Cast?
Yeah.
Cast.
We had a good lineup of guests for tomorrow, for this weekend, right? A little bit of mix, a little hybrid, jumps and flat.
Yep. I know. We had to cover both. Radnor is super exciting. 5 races. Again, free to play in the Stable Duel app. $2,000 is paid out over the top 25 finishers. This is the last one. So if you haven't gotten in, which I know most likely if you are listening, you have been in 1, 2, if not all of them. If you have not cashed, we feel it for you this time. This is the contest that you're going to cash for our National Steeplechase Association partnership. And it's been really fun. I've learned a lot. People have tuned in and said how much they've learned. Gino has learned. I've got a couple quotes from players I'm going to share about them kind of taking on jump racing the first time. But very thankful for you and all the knowledge you continually drop on all the connections, the horses, and the sport itself. So I just want to say thank you so much, Megan. It's been awesome.
It's been fun. I mean, I like to spread knowledge and information. So however I can help others learn is always fun for me. So I'm happy. And you bring so much good energy and you ask good questions and you clearly have a racing foundation that is, deep rooted. So that helps.
I'm a fan. I'm a fan.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a fan all over.
First and foremost, a fan. So.
Well, and someone keeps commenting. So Curtis is listening, and he did ask about trainers. And if you weren't listening before, Curtis, we're going to tell you now. We talked about Catherine Nielsen. She's on a heater right now. She's got runners tomorrow at Radnor. Leslie Young is on a heater as well. Runners at Radnor. Carrie, we've talked about. Jack Fisher has been a staple of the industry. Am I leaving anyone out that maybe we should tell him to keep an eye on?
Mark Beecher is a good one. Gosh, I already shut all my stuff down here.
Nope, you're good. And the other one you talked about, so we looked at Quid. So you talked about Julie
Gamina. Yeah, Julie's had a bit of a quiet spring so far, but she's got some nice horses, and I'm expecting that she's going to burst open here pretty soon with some winners. So, but I like Quid. But yeah, those are some names for you, Curtis. Yep. And Harrison, thank you. It's great to have you listening in and your comments there. Bob Baffert is coming for Blood Saturday. Curtis, I think that horse is being overlooked. I mean, Bob Baffert is the winningest Preakness trainer. So how can you leave him off your ticket, even though there's all the controversy? But blinkers on, Preakness, rail.
See, this is usually when I have to eat my words, but sometimes these, and we were talking about this with Gino and Steve, public money goes after connections sometimes in these races rather than the horses. So we're just talking about a Chad Brown and IRAD, that you will see public money there where maybe it shouldn't be based off of the horse. But if the field continues to minimize here, I mean, it might turn into anyone's game. So all of this might just like go up in smoke if First Mission gets scratched and so on and so forth. So good luck to everyone that is playing both the Preakness Stakes, Black-Eyed Susan Day tomorrow, played in the Stable Duel app. We have a few contests. And then, of course, Radnor Hunt races on Saturday, free to play, $2,000 paid out. And it's the last jump race to experience. And you can watch it live in the app. So you can sit there, watch your race, and then play with others and then interact. So this is Megan's Twitter. Hit her up if you have any questions. You'll ask me questions. I'll tag Megan. It kind of works that way. It's fine. But it's been really fun. I mean, we are over for the first time because this has just been, I don't know, it's a little sad.
Preakness. Yeah. And really great guests. Not that we haven't had them on before, but talking about Preakness and really diving into the field has been really helpful for me just because I haven't looked that close at it. And now I might actually wager on it. So we'll see.
Well, if I have any that I can give to you, I will. But I should leave on my high of giving you a Kentucky Derby winner and just not test the waters after that.
Sounds good.
All right, everybody.
Sauv Blanc.
Yes. All right, everybody. Have a great night. Enjoy your weekend and good luck.